Good evening. Oh dear. That was a firm welcome and call to order. I would like to call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, April the 22nd. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous peoples who call Lucan Biddulph home. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and respect their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. We do have an addition to the agenda, and that is item 12.1.b, and that is a report from Ron with regards to the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Department. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. So we meet today on the 55th anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day is not only a celebration of our wonderful planet, but it also serves as a reminder to us that our planet is in need of care and protection. The theme this year is Our Power, Our Planet. There's just this one planet of ours, and it's on all of us to safeguard a future with a livable climate, healthy communities, and a thriving nature, not just today, but every day. There are so many resources online that I encourage you to take advantage of that will help you think about how you can acknowledge Earth Day in your own lives. This will help guide you and your family to live a more sustainable lifestyle and to make simple changes. Our environmental legacy is a testament to the power of collective action, and it calls upon all of us, individuals, businesses, and governments, to join in safeguarding our planet. Now more than ever, we must step up our efforts to combat climate change, protect biodiversity, and preserve our ecosystems. This coming Saturday, Council and staff will be joining the guiding and scouting groups to celebrate Earth Day and Week by participating in the annual Pitch-In Day. We will be out and about in Lucan cleaning up areas that might need some extra attention. I would encourage you and your families to take 10 or 15 minutes and do a quick cleanup in your neighborhoods. It doesn't take a lot to make a difference, and together we can make that difference. So we do not need to go into into closed session, but we do have to have a public meeting under the Planning Act. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder to adjourn our regular meeting at 3 minutes after 6 to sit as the Committee of Adjustments, Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that is carried. So we have in front of us a minor variance application for property on Clark Road. And at this point, I will turn it over to Alyssa to walk us through the application.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose and effect of the minor variance application before Council is to construct an accessory building southeast of the proposed single detached dwelling on the property. The accessory building is to be used as a detached garage. The applicant is seeking permission to exceed the maximum permitted height to 5.03 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters for accessory buildings. The subject property as a whole is a 2.88 acre lot situated in an agricultural area on the east side of Clark Road, south of the intersection at Whalen Line and Clark Road. The lands are legally described as part of Lot 27, Concession North Boundary, and Part 1 of Registered Plan 33R12057 in the Township of Lucan Biddulph, County of Middlesex, municipally known as 34518 Clark Road. The applicant proposes to construct a single-unit dwelling with private servicing and a detached garage on this property. The property is designated agricultural underneath the official plan and is zoned rural residential zone in the zoning bylaw. This zone allows for a single-unit dwelling and accessory uses such as proposed. The lands are surrounded by agricultural lands used for crop production on all sides. The southern portion of the property is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and as indicated in the report, I am satisfied that the requested relief in height would not cause any negative impacts to adjacent properties and meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. No comments were received by the public during the circulation process. A comment was provided by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority that they have no objections or additional requirements, as they have already approved a permit application for the proposed work on this property. Therefore, I'm recommending approval of minor variance application A2 2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. At this time, I would ask the applicants if they had anything to add to the report. Nope. Okay. And then I will ask the committee if there's any questions or comments on the report. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I have no issues with the recommendation of the report. I do just wanted to ask, this is the first time for me, the Upper Thames Upper Thames as a concern, had a concern, and the builders had to get an additional permit. And I'm just wondering what that entailed, and maybe you can explain that to me, why that was so.
Through the chair, the Conservation Authority permit was required as the accessory building would be located within their regulated authority area. So it's just an additional permit that they require to get the approval on top of the planning application in this case.
All right. Thank you very much. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any other comment or questions on this? Okay, so we do have a recommended motion in front of us. I'm going to succinct it because it is a bit lengthy in the description of the property. But the recommended motion is that the application for minor variance A-2-2025 filed by Cassandra and Richard Sharp for relief from the Township of Lucan Biddulph Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw to permit the construction of an accessory building on the property as described by Alyssa be granted. And the reasons are included in that. Alyssa spoke to that when she delivered her report. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that is carried. See? Told you it was very straightforward. With that, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to adjourn our council or our committee of adjustment meeting. Yes, at 8 minutes after 6. That was going to be awfully quick. And reconvene our regular council meeting. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Thank you very much. So moving on into, we don't have any delegations, so we're on to the minutes. And we have 3 sets of minutes in front of us. Special meeting minutes from April the 8th, our regular meeting minutes from April the 8th, and our special meeting minutes from April the 16th. I didn't see anything that needed to be amended. If anybody else did, I'd be looking for that. Otherwise, I'd ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as circulated. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. I don't believe that there was anything that was added to business arising. Did council want anything added to business arising from the minutes that we just approved? Okay. Seeing none, into correspondence. We have received a few items and one has been pulled for discussion. And that was an email that had been sent to members of council regarding a request for a hazardous waste disposal day. I don't know, Ron, if you can speak to the history and then maybe I'll open it up for a bit of discussion.
I think this is sorry, through the chair to council. I believe this is an issue of communicating what options are available to the ratepayers of Lucan Biddulph. Right now, we do have a contract through the County of Middlesex to access the City of London's hazardous waste site. It's not the most convenient, I will say that. It's on the south side of London. I believe it's Manning Drive. I was gonna say Dingman, but anyway, close. But so it's not the most convenient location. However, there is an option to use that. In the letter from Miss Hoffman here, I do appreciate the fact that she's looking for options, but at an average cost of for each event, according to what St. Mary's has done in the past, 15 to 18,000 per event. That's a little bit out of our price range. I would suggest a little inconvenience on the part of users. I think it's still a good option for us. And for that cost, I don't know. The only other thing I could maybe suggest is that this be carried forward to Blue Water Recycling in case they wanted to do one sort of their coverage area on a maybe twice a year basis, spring and fall or something like that. Certainly that could maybe be explored, but at this point in time, I don't believe anybody on staff is recommending that we pursue this our own type of event.
Maybe just remind me, Ron, I think we have discussed this in the past. And I believe that like you have to get special licensing or you have to work with Ministry of Environment and then there's the truck. And that's where all the costing comes from. Is that correct? Just to get a better understanding. Why it's prohibited.
You're correct. I believe there is a special license you have to have. It's not just, oh, we'll just host it on a Saturday morning. That's not, it's not as simple as that. It is, they are hazardous wastes, so they have to be handled accordingly. So proper staff training has to take place. I'm not even sure that our staff are qualified to do it. So you may have to get a company to come in and actually do it. So it certainly is not cheap and it is hazardous waste. So we have to treat it accordingly.
Councillor Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so I was actually the one that brought this up probably about 5 years ago to have a hazardous waste site. And then we went through this with the cost and of course the other options available. So maybe something down the road when our population increases, maybe it's something we can look at down the road. And it is expensive to do. So you're right. There was a lot of talk about, and then staff did come back and say there was a lot of licensing and it's not just opening up some place that, where we collect the yard waste. We can't do that. So what I was wondering though, is that to Ron's point about information back to the community about what the options are. I know there's a little bit of a drive that we have to do that. So that's what I think. I also think too, that what I could do if council's okay is that I'm on the environmental and sustainability committee for, there's several municipalities. I could bring it to them. Because I know Bill Irwin, who's our chair, is very interested in this sort of thing. And I'm wondering if maybe there are some other options, but I think maybe communication to people would be first of all, so that people know what's available. And as our population increases, the need would increase. But again, the cost, and I know we've investigated the cost too, and it was quite prohibitive. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Regan. I think what I would propose is that staff formally respond to Ms. Hoffman's letter here, thanking her for the information, sort of giving her a bit of reasoning why we don't do it. And then, if we can maybe get social media and maybe even a blurb in our next newsletter, just to remind people that we do have an option and where they can take it. So.
And just for anybody that's watching, and batteries can be dropped off here during business hours because we do have the collection of batteries here. So, okay, so you'll look after replying to the email. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Were there any other comments from council on that? Yeah, Councillor Hodgins, sorry. Okay. All right. Other items of correspondence? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I noticed in the AMO watch file for April 10th, there was a line in there about Canoe Procurement Group adding home hardware to their list of vendors. And I know we use that vendor quite a bit locally. So I'm just wondering if that has any impact because we also use Canoe. So just wondering if we could have staff look into that a little bit to see if there's some potential cost savings there.
Thank you. Any other items of correspondence that council wanted to speak to? Yep.
I just want to jump on what Councillor Hodgins said there. It'll be actually I'd be interesting to hear, because you see that a lot in the billing. It'd be nice for staff to take a bill from last month. We weren't part of the canoe, and just see what our pricing would be. And to just report back, just be, if they say, just it's a different type of program or what it entails. But yeah, no, I'll be curious. That's interesting, there's nothing better than checking a bill from last month.
If I could interject, Madam Mayor, sometimes it's as simple as a 10% below whatever we get. So it might be as simple as just a 10% savings or whatever, but hey, 10% is 10%. So, yeah.
Just on the same watch file that you brought up, Councillor Hodgins, is the Teeny Tiny Summit, list of teeny tiny summits. And I don't know if you've gone to one, Councillor Regan, at all in the past. Anyways, it's a economic development event that's usually hosted in partnership with OMAFRA. Anyways, one is being hosted in Strathroy in June. Of course, I didn't pull the date, but registration isn't open, but it might be something that anybody might be interested in, because it's close by. So, and they're often, and I know the keynote speaker that they have is often very entertaining. So I've seen him speak a few times. Okay. Was there any other items that council wanted to speak to? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those items of information, items of correspondence for information, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. On to committee reports. Blue Water,
Yeah, nothing to report.
Economic Development,
Meeting later this month, Madam Mayor.
nothing from Lake Huron, nothing from the fire boards, ABCA.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are a set of minutes attached from the March 20th meeting, and we did meet last week as well. Just went over the first quarter profit and loss statements, and we had an interesting presentation where staff walked us through some of the March and April flood events with lots of photos. So if council's interested, I could circulate that presentation. It's interesting to see all the flooding that occurred. Most of it was in the Port Franks area. That's about it to report.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. That'd be great. Parks and Recreation.
We are meeting May 8th, Madam Mayor, and I'll have a report for council after that.
Okay. On to staff reports. Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first report is regarding the Glavin coating and refinishing DC hearing that we had at the last, I believe 2 weeks ago tonight. I tried to summarize in the report sort of the chronology of how things occurred and when they occurred. So I won't go through all that again, but I will highlight the comment from our consultant, Lisa Courtney. She did say that there's 3 instances whereby a rebate or credit is appropriate, and namely, number 1, the amount of the development charge paid was incorrectly determined. In this case, it was not incorrectly determined. Number 2, if there is a credit available for use against the development charges, or the amount of the credit or service to which it was applied was incorrectly determined. And again, that doesn't apply in this instance. And number 3, an error in the application of the development charge bylaw. And that, again, is not the case in this instance. So I go through, I'm not going to repeat everything. One of the comments from Mr. Glavin is that it's unfortunate that there's just one rate per square meter for non-residential. And he sort of justified that by saying there's four or five different rates for residential. But again, I think we all have to understand that residential is easier to classify when it's a single family home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a townhouse, a duplex, or a semi-detached. So those are easier to define. When it comes to non-residential, it's very difficult to define because we don't know what the use is going to be. Unfortunately, in Mr. Glavin's case, he's a very limited user of sanitary sewer services just because of what he is using the property for. It could have been sold to somebody who wants to put a microbrewery in there, and certainly that would have been a lot more use of both water and sanitary. So the problem is our only opportunity to collect that development charge is at the time of building permit. So if we were to grant a credit, we would not have an opportunity to further collect if at some point in time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that property was sold and then a microbrewery was going to be set up in there. We don't have a further opportunity to do that. So at the end of all this, I think it's staff's recommendation that Glavin's appeal be denied, and that we communicate that to Mr. Glavin.
Okay, thank you for that, Ron. Comments or questions from council or discussion? Deputy Mayor?
No, I got nothing more to add other than if anyone wants to hear what we had to say at the last meeting, because I got nothing further to add than the last meeting. I'd be repeating myself, so I'll support the recommended motion by your CAO if anyone wants to second it.
Okay. Are you going to second it? Okay, so it'll be moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Westman. Were you going to say anything? I thought I saw your hand. Okay, no, anything? Yeah, no, I think you've laid it out quite clearly, Ron, in your report, as to why it in my mind, and I'm thinking maybe as I look at council's heads, that from why council can't agree with the appeal. I think it is interesting, the point being made that you can't go back and collect the development charges, like once the building is built, you can't go back. And I think it is important to note that, had the appeal been, or should we appeal, should we grant the appeal, then that money does come from all of the ratepayers. And I think, that's not a general tax expense. So I'll call the vote, and then, but just so we know the timelines, I'll call the vote and then we'll talk about the timelines. So the recommendation was moved by the Deputy Mayor, and it was seconded by Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. So the timelines are, we have to let him know within a certain period of time, correct?
Correct, through you, Madam Mayor. The notice of decision gets sent out no later than 20 days after the decision is made. And then that follows a 40-day appeal time period.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, your next report, Ron.
The second report, CAO number 10, 2025, is in regards to the retirement, number one, of the current chief, Mr. Mike Fletcher. Mr. Mike Fletcher submitted his resignation effective the end of April after 18 years of service to the Biddulph Blanchard Fire area. The board had a special meeting, I believe it was the end of March. I think it was March 26th was the meeting date. And at that meeting, the chief brought forth a recommendation for a replacement, and basically the replacement will be in an acting role, and it's an acting role due to the fact that we are in the midst of figuring out our whole fire services master plan. So we did the same thing with the deputy chief position when Tim Shipley retired as deputy chief for the Lucan department. So it will be in an acting role. Mr. Brian Bates is obviously the recommendation, and he comes highly qualified. He's got all his qualifications, and we are happy to put his name forward before council.
Thank you, Ron. Any comments or questions on that report? Okay, then you do have a recommended motion front of you that we received the report and that council appoint Mr. Brian Bates as acting deputy chief of the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Area Board on an acting basis effective May 1st, 2025. And further that the revised appointed persons bylaw, fire department bylaws be adopted. Move in a second, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Did you have anything verbal, Ron? Did you have anything, Tina? Okay. Public Works, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a straightforward report for council on the culvert replacement on Fallon Drive. The tender did close in early April, and we had a number of bids on it. It's listed in the report. The low bid was Vandenberg Construction. We have used them in the past on our Roman Line Bridge. With the review at Spreetz, the tender requirements and the tender that was submitted meets all of our expectations. So I am recommending Vandenberg Construction, and it did come in under budget.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jeff. There was certainly a wide variety of costings that came in on that. Any questions or comments on that tender recommendation? Just on that, do we know why because I mean, the high end was essentially twice as much as the one that you're recommending?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we do open it for prefab and built on site. So there is advantages to both. In this case, we opened it to both types of application here, and the winning bid is build on site. And one of the reasons is it is a township road that we can close down and for a period of time and be comfortable with that. So.
All right, thank you for that. If there aren't any further questions or discussion on that, then you do have the recommended motion in front of you with regards to the tender results. So mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Did you have anything verbal, Jeff?
I'll just mention that there is two motions coming up on drain requests, and there are one is an outlet that is required for the Hodgins drain and an outlet that is required on the Hodgins Branch B drain. So these are access to points that don't have drainage at this point in that watershed. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, on to councillor comments. Councillor Westman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to let council know that I attended Perth South Council meeting on the 15th of April to represent Lucan Biddulph in a drainage approval. It was a little bit interesting because I was actually made a member of the Court of Revision and was allowed to vote, which I've never heard of such thing, but I signed a declaration and everything, and I was able to vote. It was for the Benner drain, and it was approved. And it was an interesting process to see how another council functions. It was pretty good. Also, along with Pitch-In Day on Saturday, we will be conducting an e-waste recycling depot. First Lucan Scouts will be manning that function, and we have people with trucks and trailers that will assist within the local area. If anybody has equipment and materials that they want to recycle that they're not able to bring over themselves, they just need to let us know and we can help them get it over. It is a fundraiser for First Lucan Scouts and Guides to help with our annual expenses. And also we have scheduled a Trails and Connectivity meeting for June 12th at 6 p.m. here at the council chambers. So we'll be convening a meeting and discussing the future of trails in the community.
Okay,
There you go.
that's good. The thank you for the reminder about the hazardous waste that comes in, but I guess that's the e-waste, but it is good timing given what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
I mean,
Yep.
we had a local telecommunication company offer us regular deposits of electronics to help with our fundraising as well. So that would be Quadro Communications. They don't have a whole lot, but when they do have any equipment, then we'll be recycling that for them, and it'll help us out. So.
Oh, that's
great.
excellent. That's good. And thank you for attending the Court of Revision. And that is interesting that you were made part of that.
Was sitting in the gallery and they went, no, come on up here. And they had to sign a declaration and read it out. And that, I went to the best of my abilities and all that. And yeah, and I was given a full vote. It was kind of cool. So now the drain does affect, it does drain properties in Lucan Biddulph. So it is part of our drainage system. And I'm familiar with the property and the drain. So it's kind of neat to be a part of that. So yeah.
Interesting. As you say, I've never come across that before. Okay. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Regan?
Just going to the Councillor Westman said just about the cleanup day went on Saturday. Just like to see lots of people out there. Just the more people we have out there, the easier it's going to be. And if you can't get out to the parks and that, just get out to around your house and your neighborhood. I'm just encouraging residents to get out there and pitch in Thank you. See you there.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, no more comments? Any more comments? Okay, there's no changes to budget. Any notices of motion? Moving on to our motion. So we have the first one, and of course, that's the accounts paid. That the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows, and that's for March 2025, and the total is $2,139,476.96. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. That the Township of Lucan Biddulph Council appoint Spreet Associates London Limited under Section 4 or 78 of the Drainage Act to prepare a drainage report for the requested work to the Hodgins Drain Branch B, subject to the required 30 days notice to the applicable Conservation Authority. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? And that's carried. That the Township of Lucan Biddulph Council appoint Spreet Associates London Limited under Section 4 or 78 of the Drainage Act to prepare a drainage report for the requested work for the Hodgins Drain, subject to the required 30 days notice to the applicable Conservation Authority. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor, and that's carried. So bylaw 07-2025 is the bylaw to provide drainage works in the Township of Lucan Biddulph for the Gowdy Drain. And this is the third and final reading, so that if no one cares to speak to bylaw 07-2025 on its third reading, that it be considered to have been read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. And then we have three bylaws that were spoken to earlier in front of us, so that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 17-2025 through 19-2025 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 6:33 p.m. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Reminder that we do have a special meeting next week.